You know, you'd never think a high-stakes trade war would have anything to do with your garbage can. But it turns out, millions of tons of trash have become this sort of secret weapon in a huge battle over tariffs and titans of industry between the US and Canada.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We're talking about a full-blown trade conflict, one that's pitting two of the world's closest allies and economic partners squarely against each other. And the tone for this whole thing? Well, it was set right from the get-go. This quote from Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, just perfectly captures the mood. It's high stakes, it's bare knuckle. He made it totally clear this wasn't going to be some friendly chat. This was going to be a pure test of strength.
So how did we even get here? I mean, look at how quickly this all escalated. It kicks off in February 2025, bam, a 25% tariff from the US. Canada fires right back a month later. By the summer, Premier Ford is calling for dollar-for-dollar retaliation. And by 2026, the game changes again, with the US launching these really complex trade investigations. The pressure was just building and building on both sides of the border.
Okay, so hang with me because we're going to switch gears to what seems like a totally different story. But I promise you it's all connected. For decades, there's been this massive, invisible river of garbage flowing from Canada's biggest province, Ontario, right into the United States. And the scale of this is just staggering. Get this, every single year, Ontario exports 3.44 million tons of solid waste to the US. To put that in perspective, that's like having over 500,000 elephants cross the border every year, just in the form of trash. It's wild. So where does it all go? A huge chunk of it ends up in one state, Michigan. In 2025, over 14%. Think about that. More than 1 in every 10 truckloads of all the waste dumped in Michigan landfills came straight from Canada. It's become a critical piece of their entire waste management system.
So why Michigan? Well, it all boils down to simple economics, really. Michigan charges just 36 cents a ton in landfill fees. Now compare that to its neighbors. Ohio is almost $5. Wisconsin is 13. So even when you factor in all the complicated cross-border compliance stuff, the digital paperwork, the certificates of origin for every single truck, with prices that low, it's a financial no-brainer for Ontario.
And this, right here, is where our two stories slam into each other. That garbage route, which for years was just business as usual, is suddenly a powerful bargaining chip in the trade war. Environmental policy is literally being turned into an economic weapon. The key term you've got to know here is environmental arbitrage. It sounds fancy, but the idea is simple. U.S. lawmakers are arguing that when Canadian companies can dump trash super cheaply in Michigan, it's basically a subsidy. It lowers their business costs, giving them an unfair leg up on American companies that have to play by more expensive environmental rules. And this isn't just some abstract theory. In March of 2026, it got very real. A group of 21 U.S. senators basically sent a shot across the bow. They sent a letter demanding that the big review of the North American trade deal, the USMCA, be used to force stronger environmental rules on their partners.
And the tool they plan to use? It's called a Section 301 investigation. It lets the U.S. dig into a partner's trade practices to see if they're unreasonable or discriminatory. But here's the real kicker. For the first time, the U.S. is officially connecting what it calls lax environmental protection to unfair trade. So all of a sudden, Ontario's cheap landfill access doesn't look like smart business anymore. It looks like a trade violation that could get hit with tariffs.
So with all this pressure, you'd think Canada, and especially Ontario, might be looking for a compromise, right? Nope, not a chance. Premier Doug Ford is gearing up for an all-out economic brawl.
I mean, listen to Ford's strategy here. It's crystal clear. Meet strength with strength. He is all in on a dollar-for-dollar response. The belief is that the only thing the U.S. administration will understand is a firm, powerful pushback.
But, talking tough is one thing. You have to have the economic muscle to back it up. And if you take a peek at Ontario's books, well, the province is already running a pretty big deficit and looking at slow growth. This makes a long, drawn-out trade war an incredibly risky gamble. The stakes couldn't be higher. But don't count Ontario out. Premier Ford has a few aces up his sleeve. He's basically reminded the U.S. that a lot of the critical stuff their military and manufacturing sectors absolutely need, things like high-grade nickel, uranium, potash, yeah, a lot of that comes from Ontario. It's a clear message. Trade is a two-way street.
So you've got the tariffs, you've got the trash, you've got the threats. And it is all hurtling toward one single critical date. A day of reckoning for North American trade in 2026.
Mark your calendars for July 1st, 2026, because that's the day this all comes to a head. That's when the US, Canada, and Mexico have to decide if they're going to extend the USMCA trade deal. What was supposed to be a routine check-in has morphed into a high-stakes renegotiation with the entire economic future of the continent hanging in the balance.
And this is why that threat, the threat to shut down the garbage route, is so incredibly potent. Check out these numbers. If Ontario can keep sending its trash to Michigan, its own landfills are good until 2037. But if that border closes, they are in a full-blown crisis by 2034. That 3-year difference is an immediate, urgent problem for the province.
And the situation is actually even more fragile than it looks. You might think, okay, they still have some landfill capacity, but it's not spread out. A mind-blowing 85% of their entire remaining space is packed into just 15 sites. The whole system is basically balanced on a knife's edge.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It all really boils down to this one question. As trade becomes less about just moving goods freely and more about strategic competition, things we never even thought about, like where our trash goes, are suddenly on the negotiating table. It's like the line between environmental policy and economic power has just vanished. In this new world, how a country manages its pollution might just be as important as what it makes.